Okay, welcome everyone. I'll go ahead and call the regular school board meeting to order. Yes. First on our agenda tonight, thank you, Darlene, are there any comments, or I will officially call to order the public hearing. And are there any comments, oral or written, concerning the proposed issuance of approximately $7,500,000 school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds? I'm not seeing any head nods from the audience. Have there been any comments submitted in writing? Okay, so hearing no comments, oral or written, I will call the public hearing adjourned. Next, I will call to order the regular school board meeting. And we'll do roll call. Please note that all directors are present in person. Do I have a volunteer to read the mission and vision statement?
I can.
Thanks, Ron.
At Decorah Community School District, we embrace student learning and well-being as our fundamental purpose. We will, in partnership with our students, families, and community, make the world a better place. The mission of the Decorah Community School District is learning, thriving, creating our legacy. The vision of the Decorah Community School District is Decorah Community School District will be a collaborative, innovative, learning-centered organization empowering students to embrace their personal strengths and create their future.
Thank you. There is no old business on the agenda tonight, so next we'll move to the approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we have approval of the consent items and minutes from June 10th and 17th meetings, bills and personnel. And as we review the approval of the consent items, I would like to separate out the activity funds separately because we will have two abstentions for that vote.
I'll make a motion. We approve the consent agenda with the removal of those items. Rest.
Second. Okay. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we will vote on the approval of consent items, activity funds. And if you are abstaining from this vote, will you please speak up?
Will abstain from number 23.
Okay. And Carol, I think you need to abstain from number 23 as well.
Okay, I will abstain from this vote.
Okay. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. And abstain.
I abstain.
Abstain. So motion and second for that, or you?
Did I skip that? Let's do that again. So Brian made a motion and then I skipped ahead.
I'll make a motion of the activities fund now. I'll make a motion of the activities fund with the exclusion of 20. No, we already did that.
We did that.
Yeah.
So this is just the activity.
Yeah, that
Fund.
motion for the activities fund 23.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Zander. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Two abstains.
Yes.
I abstain.
I abstain.
Thanks. I think we did it.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have an open forum communication from the public. Would anyone in person here like to address the board? Okay. There's no presentation this month formally from staff, which is typically what that presentation time is for, but we'll move on to new business. And we have an update and a discussion from the Elementary Facility Committee. And is there anyone from the Facility Committee that's here in person that would like to address the board?
All in nice order. Hello, Mark Jensen here on behalf of the Facility Committee. Thank you for your time tonight. And obviously, this is a large undertaking that is going on through this process of planning and something that we're building upon all the vast years that many people have worked on this. And I was privileged to be asked to be on this committee. And I want to provide you guys some context of what that was. It was a group of about 20 of us, give or take, throughout the process. It started in January, met at least once a month through that time, and spent lots of times thinking and building upon the planning that's already been done. We had the luxury of knowing where it will be. And so we were able to take this to the next level that other groups that haven't had that opportunity to work in that. And during that time, a mix of us from throughout the community, throughout the whole district, in the rural parts of the district, the interior parts of the district, various professions of expertise, various people throughout different centers of influence came together to really build and work upon all of that past effort. And we did that with real intent and responsibility. And we took it very seriously and had opportunities to tour the school and work with the architecture group and work with leaders that are staff at the school, that are administration at the school, and do as much as one can to try to put their arms around something this big. When you look at a project of this scale, there are so many details that come in. And as I spoke to you last time, we're also blessed with a community where we have lots of great passion and ideas. And we really had to work hard to balance the wants and the needs of a project of this scale and scope. And it didn't go without effort trying to find the best combinations of ways in which we can put forth what we need as a school. And that is without a doubt what this committee has come together in unanimous decision to look at. And we're doing our best and have come up with a great jumping off point from the plan and have come together to find those things. One thing that I think is also important to realize is we wanted the community's voice. And so the best way that we could do that was to issue the survey that we sent out earlier this year. We got 1,151 responses to a survey that we were told we should expect 200 to 300. I think that is telling in its own right about the participation this community has and what it believes in these types of projects. And when we had that, 76% of it came back positive. And that's telling. We also had 40% of those respondents were from outside of Decorah. This is broad-based support. That was 70% in favor. So it really empowered us to look for ways to move this project forward and to find ways to really get it off first base and do our best to serve this community and serve these children. And as a whole, we really feel strongly about the letter that we outlined to you guys today about that it would be a complete removal and rebuild. And it's critical to really move forward with what needs to be done to get into the next generation of learning. As a personal note, I spent the day celebrating a 7-year-old boy today. It made me think a lot about what is special about this community. I saw the community around everyone there and the vibrancy and the special nature that we have. It made me think about what does it take to have the vitality of this community? And it isn't our features and the aspects, it's the people. And if we don't take the collective responsibility of this group, this community, this board, to move something like this forward, to start out at a pre-K through 2, how can we say we're really serving the people in this community? And how can we expect the vitality of this community to be living long in the future? This is a decision of now, but it's for perpetuity. And so, as a committee, we ask that the school district move forward. We recommend that the district approve a petition in November on a general obligation bond not to exceed $38 million to fund the construction of a new elementary school. We also recommend that the board approve a resolution ordering a special election in September to approve the debt service levy for the payment of general obligation bonds. And that is at a unanimous vote. And what we feel is the voice of the community behind us in that survey and the responses that we've got. I would welcome any questions.
I'm gonna highlight, because I happen to have it right in front of me, the letter that we just released from the committee. The key points where there's a critical need for a tear down rebuild. We identified now is the time. This is in efforts in collaboration with city. Has been part of the discussion. There's an element of fiscal responsibility where we see doing it now instead of waiting is gonna cost more. We want to ensure that this project is funded so that it can get done correctly, so ensure sufficient funding. And then the final thing is that November vote.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure when you guys got the letter, so I didn't want to hash through all the details, but I think it is important for us to think about the minding that fiscal responsibility has been a big portion of this too. And leaving a design that has some malleability in it so that we can respond to something. We're making a decision today that doesn't bid for 18 months. And everyone is well aware of the construction environment that we've been in and the challenges it faces. So as a committee, we really worked hard to find flexibility within our design, flexibility within our financial structuring, and which would enable us to pay for the school responsibly and not leave ourselves prone to being backed into a corner in the event that there were changes in the construction planning or costs. We put a lot of thought into what kind of structure it would take and what it meant for our constituents and our citizens from a tax standpoint and from what this kind of ask really means to everybody within the community. And so all those things played into a number of things of getting into asking you 2 questions or recommendations.
And because visuals always make things better.
Can we bring them up or?
Yeah, this is
I'm
like
not
a
sure.
time where you point to the board,
Yeah.
the magic board, like.
I just saw them like 20 minutes ago, so I wasn't sure. No, I mean, the final.
The
Yeah.
final, so I'll let you talk us through what this kind of represents. What we don't have is detailed layouts for each classroom, because it's not that would be design phase, which we're not in.
Yep. Yeah, and so,
You probably don't remember the Dr. Max show
yeah.
on Channel 2 back in the
Well,
70s.
and I'll let Nick jump in with me, but like, if from seeing it here, and throughout the process, we've worked to be minding the gaps of all our partnerships and find efficiencies within ways to best serve the community. And we asked for some of that feedback within the surveys as well. School is currently designed at approximately 90,000 square feet, which works out to an approved square foot per pupil basis to meet the needs based upon modern day education. And within regulatory guidelines that, change some of the way a school used to be able to be built versus how we were building the school. It allows for green space and, functionality, is interesting in being a part of the conversations, from that standpoint. When thinking of proximity of green space, for me as a layman was one thing to then hear staff say, well, if I have to take kids all the way across the playground and during this to get to the hard surface, it was interesting to work through some of the feedback on that. Those types of things as well. It continues the popularity of the racket sports environment that we have in this community, as well as serving our student athletes within the school district. It is always hopefully going to better the queuing line that is always happening in the morning at drop off. We have some opportunities to create a better drop off zone and some changes that way from the design. What else?
Well, it's important to notice that there's traffic flowing through on Claiborne Street. There's no barricades or barriers that would shut the street down. Because that was, I think, in some diagrams that Bolton and Minks did in the joint study. This is with a big disclaimer, this is just a concept, but it reflects some of the big ideas. Playgrounds could be bigger or smaller, but the feedback we got, especially from the teachers, was we don't really care where the playground climbing equipment is. We just want it next to the hard surface tennis court playground. So if that's gonna be on the far eastern end, just slide the playground equipment down. So of course, this is the kind of the eastern view. And See, Dr. Max had a magic board where he would play
Yeah.
cartoons on, and he could just point at it. Maybe Mambo had a wand. But that was the seventies technology, I guess.
And now the western side?
Yeah, the western view.
So we worked through a variety of feedback and I'm still tweaking the final version of this, but thinking back on the west. There was a desire for green space within the western portion, western portion of the landscape there. That changes some of that entry point of the community. There's been discussions and working with the city on how we can manage a cohesive project between hopefully there's going to be an improvement to it's Hively, right?
Yeah.
Hively, that would coincide with some construction timing that could reshape some of this bus drop off. A big portion of the current congestion can include commingling the bus drop off with the traffic flow. So this allows for a dual serving place so that we have the buses away from the morning traffic flow from an individual drop off basis. Also then eliminate some of the far end there that this is a high congestion point up where the two meet up, because then we have buses going back out this way, flipping back down towards that. And
One of the changes on this last drawing was more green space on the western edge.
yeah,
And again, I think we had a discussion, as you pointed out, with the bus pull in. Is it a parking lot? Is it a pull-in lane? Pull-in lane would have more green space there. So again, understand that this is a concept and represents ideas of what we're planning. We're not in the design phase yet, but this is kind of where we envision stuff and how it working out. Obviously, a second playground there for preschool, which is by state law has to have its own separate playground. And I can't see the fence that surrounds it, but I'm sure there is one.
yeah, and there's a lot of partnerships that have been leveraged within this and working strategically with the city. Specifically and thinking about how those projects can be, cohesive. There's critical infrastructure that flows under parts of the property that we have to take into account on how we design and lay out that enable us to have access that we don't pigeonhole ourselves or backdoor into a different problem in the future. And also how you continue to create a downtown urban environment that has vibrancy with youth and has that parlay into a community aspect of what kind of aspects of this space can be leveraged by the community, not just by our youngest there too. So, there's a lot of positives that are already within this concept design. The interior spaces allow for growth into a more modern layout, allow for some meaning having classroom design that is more highly functional than interior rooms that currently serve as closets for reading intervention, and things like that. So I think we have some really great opportunities to create a space that returns on the investment that the youth deserve and that our educators deserve as well. It's a project in a long time in the making, largely overdue.
And probably one of the other key points is, this is kind of on a footprint that allows us to use the existing John Klein while we're constructing the new facility. So we won't have to have portable classrooms or anything like that. We can just go from, while we're building the new one, we'll use the old one.
And that was something too that we were working really hard to have within that design. There will obviously be displacement through a project of this scale. But if we can work through a minimization to where we can have an operating school while we're all functioning within that, still leave some space still for green space and playground space throughout a construction project. Those are all, we're doing our best to keep those in mind and think about the layout of that space and how it's impacted during the project itself. And leaving as much of the current resources leverageable during that time, to mitigate as much of that displacement as we can.
May the board ask you questions,
Absolutely.
or do you have more to?
No, any questions?
So I appreciate the letter from the facility committee. I sat on that committee for a portion of the time. And specifically in your recommendation tonight verbally, and then also in the letter of support to the board. It talks about authorizing the tax levy and authorizing the tax levy exceeding the current $2.70 per 1,000, but not to exceed 405. And can you talk a little bit about how this recommendation can be made at the state where the project is today, knowing that final design is to come and that price, this is setting a cap at the top end of what is affordable or what is recommended, and how far down the road this project will actually go to bid, and we'll know what it's gonna cost to build.
The first meeting that the group met was actually involved a discussion with the finance group, I want to say, a consultant.
Financial,
Yeah, financial advisor that helped us understand the different cash flow streams that can support a project like this. And so within our existing structure, there's an opportunity to fund a project that we have the tax levy, and then there's multiple other avenues that are within current tax, like the SAFE program and et cetera. When we look at that desire for you guys to go in September to request that 270 up to 405, not two specifically, but up to. What we felt was the fiscal responsible way to go about that was, if we don't go into this with that change, we would be full leverage of levy and all other programs of cash flow to attempt a project of this scale. And, you know, the layman's, or the term that got thrown out, was like being house poor. Like, we would be all avenues would be fully tapped. And we would set ourselves up to, if we had a change in the bidding process, that we could be underfunded and have to come back again now to be able to support a project of that scale. So by going in September and requesting for the ability to increase, having the opportunity or option to increase to 405, leaves us flexibility within our cash flow structure that would enable us to adapt to changes or to the final things, and not get a bond pass in November, only to then get the bids back 18 months, you know, within the 18-month plan from when we start, and then have to, you know, get the cart backwards in front of the horse. So we really felt that we want to leave that option there that would enable us to have that, find the best sources and use of funds, so we don't pigeonhole ourselves or, you know, backdoor into a different problem, like I said before. We went through a lot of the different options, what that would be. And when we have a final, you know, dollars, we hope that we could be under that, well under that 405 as what the equivalent tax rate would.
So it's possible that in the end, that rate would be below 405. The language on the ballot in September will be up to 405, but it
Correct.
could be under.
You know, three votes to, yeah. There's a combination of sequence in which this has to happen with new legislative rules. So yes, like in September, we would be asking you to asking the citizens to approve the school board to have the function to raise to a 405. In November, we would have a project that may be asking that would only take the equivalent to, say, 365, or, you know, depending upon 370, depending on what all those final numbers are. So the way that the law is, based upon how we were advised, was that you have to ask up to the 405, and then your actual bond request could equate to a number that was lesser than that range that is available to you.
Yeah. So this is giving the district the financial flexibility that we need to complete the project
Yeah.
now.
Well, and it's at the recommendation of, you know, the time that all of us spend time with that. Without that flexibility, we could take something to vote in November and find out that we are in a different position to fund that. And, you know, when you're running the school of this scale, the expenses that you guys can run into, and to leave some of those relief valves open for your other funding sources, allows us to react to needs of our other facilities, and allows us to react to needs that we may not even know that we have yet.
Right.
Versus fully tapping those sources upfront.
Well, I was previously sitting in one of those meetings. I wasn't on the committee itself, but I sat on one of them, and it was very, very evident when I sat in that the work and scope that you guys put into it and the thought. you met several times, but just the time that I was there, the discussions you guys had were deep. And you guys would put a lot of thought into it, not only the financial part of it, but the design of things. And I can't give you guys enough credit for the work you guys put into it and coming up with final product. I think that, not a final product, but something to recommendation that we surely can work on from a financial aspect and also a design aspect. And I think you guys have done a yeoman's job, and I sure appreciate what everybody on that committee have done.
Yeah, I think everyone took it seriously, and I think, we're there to serve and, build upon the work that had already happened, as I've referenced multiple times. This isn't a new project. It's a now project, but really it's for the future yet. So we're gonna have a scale of history to the future within the realm of the thought and effort and time and that people put in. And, so, yeah, I'm proud of the work that the committee has done, and, it wasn't done in haste. And, it wasn't all, everything was in agreement. There was, genuine good debate and thinking about all aspects of finding the way to create progress, not at the sake of preference or perfection. In the end, we need a school. And these kids need a school, our educators need a school, this community needs a school. And that's what our primary focus is, and we feel strong about our ability to meet those needs and other needs as well.
And despite the emotional conversations that were had and the transparent conversations that were had amongst the group to express feelings, thoughts, and ideas, tonight you're coming with a unanimous recommendation from that diverse committee.
Yep.
Did I hear you correctly?
Yeah, unanimous, and everyone agreed to, or everyone was in favor of the message this evening. Everyone signed the letter. One person that started the committee got a different job move, so they were not part of the end of it, but outside of that, we've built through that. We've also had some people in and out that we leverage as resources that weren't throughout the entire process, that brought in things that also agreed to be part of that. And I think that I know that there's a unanimous support behind you of that. And I think that we represent an honest cross-section of the community that can give you faith that we aren't just all here preaching to the choir. So.
What other questions does the board have for Mark? And we also have Nick and Patty here from Emergent Architecture that could answer questions as well.
I don't know that I have questions, but I would highlight two things that both Mark and the letter have shared. And noting before us that we have our mayor sitting right here, and sitting in the last facility meeting. From the beginning to now, it's clear that we in the city are very much in partnership in all of this. And so Travis, on what day that was last week?
July 2nd.
Yeah, Tuesday. I was like, the days are a little fuzzy, but he was like, actually, with the bus pull through, if you do this instead of potentially that. So there's clear collaboration and conversation between us and the city and making sure that we're thinking this through, doing it right, if you will. That it's not done in isolation, but in collaboration. And the other part that I wanted to highlight that Mark brought up was the survey. So there were like 1,100 responses. And we sat in a meeting and read through every single one of them. So you can categorize, this person said yes, and they want this. And this person said no, and they don't want that. And we really went through with a fine-tooth comb to say, what are the priorities we need to have, but also, as you eloquently put it, what are our needs versus what are our wants? And how do we balance those? So make sure we're getting all the needs and as many of the wants as we can. So green space, the tennis courts, transportation flow, all of these things have been thought about. So I'll echo much of what he said, but highlight those two specific points, and with thanks to the other members of the committee sitting in the room.
I thought of a question.
I just want one thing, I think the committee also tried to make this a community space, not just a school campus. And it has that much proximity to our downtown. It's near centers of use of like farmers markets and things like that. And it's a presentation of our whole community on that part of the structure. So thinking of it not just exclusively as a school, but trying to find that balance of needs and wants and having it be a community that's articulated.
We have full permission to interrupt. Number 2 on the list, on this letter of recommendation from the committee is in bold text, the time is now. So laws have changed in recent history, and I'm looking at Nick and Patty from Emergent Architects. If we get a yes vote in November, the school is not going to be walk in, move in ready. So that in November of 24 with a yes vote, the school is not going to be ready for the fall of 25, right? When will teachers and kids be walking in a brand new school building?
What's your best estimate?
Yeah, I mean, best estimate, last he had talked, it's at least 12 months for planning. So that takes you to the next November. It's probably bidding that winter starting in the following spring, so that's 26. And it's probably an 18-month construction schedule. So that's, what is that, 26, 27, fall of 27, beginning of 28. So
And is there anything we can do to move that up to get in the fall of 26? Maybe, maybe
I don't
not.
know how to answer that.
Yeah, you probably don't have, that's not a fair question, forgive me.
Yeah.
Okay, so knowing that's not really what we want to hear, it's gonna be a long time, even if we have a yes vote, it's gonna be a long time until we have a new school. So what happens if we have a no vote in November? What happens then? But we still need a new school. If we have a no vote, what happens?
You have to wait until next November to vote again. So.
Because school bonds can only happen during November elections,
Correct.
According to state law.
according to the new
Yep.
state law.
New state law.
The new state law.
New.
So if there are not 2 yes votes in September and 1 yes vote in November for this school project, it would be another 12 months before we have the opportunity to vote
add a
yes
year.
again. Which means another year out.
And-
As a point of clarification, the 2 potential September elections, one is already scheduled to extend the sales tax revenue purpose statement. And the one that was proposed tonight is to increase the levy up to, but not over than 405. If either of those 2 don't pass in September, but the GEO bond would pass in November, we still have a timetable where we just have to go back and get whatever doesn't pass passed in March.
Right.
Because the 2 September elections aren't contingent on going in November. So although, yeah, but I think it's probably worth saying that if they don't pass in September, then there's a possibility that the GEO bond wouldn't pass in November. But let's just have it all pass and then it just becomes theoretical.
And, I think that it's, something that we had, plenty of discussion on what that strategy is and how you deploy to navigate some of these changes in the law. And a part of that is too, is it is now. We also don't know what laws may change in the future. And if we can't rally behind this and get this done when in this point of need with this many years of planning, we don't even know what other challenges could come up in front of us, let alone the construction cost challenges, all that. So it's critical that we think strategically and find a way to move this project forward. And we don't feel like there's any better time than now. We have our site, we have a way to move forward, and it's imperative that we act upon it.
Yeah, and I think we all understand that there's a timeline that you have to follow, right? So there's timelines for the construction manager. We've got our next on board with the architect and we have the timeline already determined and going forward with the construction manager at risk. So we as a board, we know that as soon as we need to act on these things as quickly as we can. And I don't think there's anybody on the board here that that isn't willing to put in the time and effort. We already have, but continue to put the time and effort into it. With expediency to make sure things happen. So it's just some timelines that Nick's need time to design the building and different things and need to come up with an actual cost but I know we'll all do that as quickly as we possibly can and do a good job of getting information out to the public and be as transparent as we possibly can, and the costs that might cost of taxpayers and things, but those are all things that, we know we gotta we gotta stay on top of, and we're all dedicated to do that. So I think it's, this is the time, so.
And we hope that our committee and the feedback we've received through the survey, that we speak in support of the action you have to take. And we understand that this is your next step, and respect you for the decision and the effort that you guys put into doing so. We wanted to make sure that you hear from us and get, in writing, that it's not, that it was, like I said, unanimous to where this isn't the Mark Jensen show, this isn't any one person's ideas, this is the cumulative work of, a dedicated group that is here to serve you and will continue to do so as this process moves along, so.
Okay, so this agenda item is titled Discussion and Possible Approval of the Elementary Facility Committee Recommendation. And as Brian mentioned, there are important steps and deadlines that we are seeking to meet. I'm not hearing any opposition that's been voiced so far about this project. Obviously, we are, I just would open the board to make, offering a motion or voicing support to take the next step for this project.
I think before we do, there are many people from the committee. I'm just wondering if anybody else had anything that you wanted to offer for other information or from the committee before we kind of move into our discussion.
I can make a comment. It's been a long time coming as far as it's concerned, and I've been so proud of the committee that has been put together. It's been a broad base of people who worked very, very hard. But it is imperative that we get that school replaced. If ands and buts about it and how well we can do it. And from all the meetings I've been to with Brian and before, to be able to come up with a composite that has been brought forth is extremely exciting and healthy. We're getting out into the community and showcasing and being enthusiastic about getting it passed. You can't have that school be used for kids. It's just not feasible. And if we don't act on it, we may be forced to act on it. But it's been a real honor to be on the committee and to follow as they work through and discussed and came to fruition with what Mark has presented. I really encourage the board to take advantage of the work that they've done. Thanks.
Thanks, Mayor Borowski.
So anything that I would say, detail would just be a repeat of Mark all shared, but so I'll just note that I'm in full support of everything that Mark shared, and from a large employer standpoint, success for our schools will impact our broader community and every single employer and person that lives here. So in full support, and I hope you all move forward. Thanks.
And can you share your name?
Yeah,
and
sorry.
place
Steve
of employment?
Thank you.
Steve Slasser from LinMed. Thank you.
I think I'll say something really quickly. Just the mayor said it so well, so did Mark. From perspective of the city, I know the mayor would agree with this too. The reality of the extent of the cooperation between school board and city has been truly remarkable. For us to identify a problem, come to a solution that lots of good people have been working towards for a dozen years or more, and actually be well on the way towards, starting something impressive happening. I'm super grateful to the members of school board, to the city council, my colleagues there who worked hard to try to find a way through a tough conversation. And I hope our community can look at their elected officials, both in the school board and on the city council. And also the volunteers who served on this facility committee. I hope they're a little grateful that we've gotten this process to this point. And I hope that they trust where this process is going, because as the mayor said, it is paramount that we get this thing built. Thank you.
And can you share your name as well?
I'm sorry, I'm Steven Zittergren. I'm on the Decorah City Council.
Thanks for your service as well in city council.
What an amazing committee. I mean, they have worked so hard and we just really appreciate all of your hard work and detail and commitment.
And a broad committee
Yeah.
like that is needed for, I mean, that's the ideal group of community stakeholders that we need, because this is a community project.
Mhm.
So I want us to take this significant recommendation with the care and attention to detail that it deserves. This wasn't our idea. This is the community project.
It's extremely important. I've been working with the city for lots and lots of years on this thing, and as Steve said, we've always talked about this is not a Decorah school. It's a community space inside and outside that the community is going to use, and it's going to have a gym. The current John Klein gym we all know, is a cafeteria, and they have to break it down and use it for a gym. And that's not fair to the teachers, it's not fair to the students, it's not fair to anybody. So this space will, is the recommendation you guys, or came up with, it's gonna have a gym that probably makes sense, side that makes sense, that the community can use as well as us, green space, the same thing. So this isn't just, this is not just a school building on a school grounds. This is a Decorah and Winneshiek, project that the people from surrounding areas are going to be able to use, and it's a space we're going to educate our youngest learners, and they deserve more, and we know it, and it's just exciting to go forward. It's a neat deal, and I just can't wait to put in the extra effort that we need to do to make this thing succeed, and I'm very confident it will.
And I would also just thank the committee for the time commitment they've put forth, the effort to see this as the important project that it is, and put in the time to come up with a very thoughtful and well-reasoned proposal, which is currently before us. I guess if there's one thing that I might somewhat quibble with, it is paragraph number 2, which says the time is now. Quite frankly, the time was about 10 years ago, but we can't turn back the clock. So, okay, yes, the time is as soon as possible. So with that, I will express support for adopting the recommendation of the building committee as our own.
Mhm.
Call a motion.
Yeah.
I'll second Ron's motion that we act upon the recommendation of the elementary facility committee as written.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, guys. All of you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Work's not done.
Just beginning. Just beginning, thank you.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is an update on the construction manager at risk and to approve board representation for the RFQ process.
Yes, so, on July 1st, we issued a request for qualifications, and that was the process outlined to our master builders. Nick, jump in on this or help me out. And so we're getting people to say, hey, we want to be your CMAR. Those statements are due on the 15th, I think at 3 o'clock. We're gonna open them at 3:05. We've got a virtual meeting. To do that, unless it's in person, but I assumed it was virtual.
Virtual.
Okay. And then we're gonna have the week of July 15th to basically read through, score, rank. And so that on the 22nd, we can then send out to the qualified firms to the RFPs. And so being the first time it's gone through, and you've gone through this with a couple other places, what's that week of next week look? It's like a big homework week for us.
Yes, and a piece that's in between there's some questions that possibly could get submitted in right now as the RFQs are out. And so we would respond to any of those questions, which is a public, so we kind of put those out for public. The review of the qualifications, in the RFQ, we have a matrix that talks about the different ways in which the group that will be reviewing them can vote on and put scores on. And so it can be the whole board, it can be a group, it doesn't have to be everyone. But it can be. So in Williamsburg, there is a couple of board members that are part of the process. And in Hampton Dumont, I believe the majority of the board was a part of the process. And so that's kind of up to you, how you'd like to do that.
And I was kind of, I'll just say, with the short window and the expediency and not. When I would recommend that we just have 2 board members work on that from our board so that it can get done quickly and efficiently. And as we talked about that week, we've got the conference mediation that we'll talk about here in a little bit as well. So not everybody has the same amount of time.
Question, Nick, how do the construction managers, how do they know that this project is out there?
So it is posted publicly, so it's out on Master Builders website.
Okay.
And like to the point that I get calls from providers of flooring from Tennessee, you know, like it's out there. Because they don't know if it's construction manager at risk, they just don't take the time to kind of look deeper in it.
Yep.
So it has to be publicly posted, and that's a requirement from the state. And so that's out there. We have it on Rapids Reproduction, which is also sends notifications, sends it to plan rooms. And so it's out there pretty much like a public bid.
Sure.
Yeah.
And any contractor that's gonna have any size of it, do with this particular scope is gonna be probably looking at the master builders.
Yeah, they could be looking at the
Portal or
master
whatever. Yeah,
builders
got it.
plan room.
Okay. Sure.
Or on any other plan room. And if they're of decent size, they probably have lead generators that are finding it, you know, probably well before this, because it was discussed at board meetings and stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I've gotten emails, I know you've gotten emails, clearly people are seeing it and responding to that.
Yep,
So we know it's being seen.
yep. I've received many phone calls already, yep. At least 4 or 5 contractors.
Right.
And I guess it's the other part that I would make sure the board understands. This is step 1 of board involvement. There's the process by which, after we select the firms we want to get RFPs from, then we get those in, and then there's that week in August where we've got a couple days where we interview those firms. And that could be a whole board thing as well.
That could be either the smaller group or the board, however you would like to do it,
Okay.
yeah.
So even if we just have 2 people now, we could have the full board in August if it worked out for everybody.
Yeah.
So,
Just to clarify for the public, RFP means request for a proposal.
yeah. Thank you. So we're asking for requests for qualifications right now. We're saying, send us your resume, we'll review it, and if you meet our selection criteria, we may then ask for actual proposals from you.
Yes, there is a scoring rubric, and we score that, and if they are above 80 on the scoring rubric, and then they're invited to provide a proposal and/or you don't have to interview either. That is also a possibility.
And that criteria is, that rubrics on page 5 of the document that's part of the board packet, the selection criteria.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to see the rubric, and I think that just brings some objectivity, to a subjective process of picking. So, yeah, I'm just glad that we have that structure and piece in place. I'm comfortable with 2 board members representing the whole board at this stage of the process. And, who has timing capacity?
Just the one Monday, we talked about possibly Monday. Yeah, I'd be interested.
Thank you, Brian. I know that,
Willing.
You just volunteered.
so Brian, I know that you have shared your time and you have talked, I mean, the whole board at different levels of involvement have listened, either participated live in meetings with construction companies to hear about the different processes and, or listen to recordings of meetings.
Mhm.
Thank you for being present during a few of those meetings and asking really good questions. And I feel like you have a really good base of just understanding the process to be a great representative of the board on that committee.
Thanks.
So thanks.
And I'd be willing to also join that committee, and I do have time in my life to do that right now, so.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you. And I know that you have asked a lot of questions along the way and have also participated in meetings, so thank you. Is there anything that we need to think about otherwise, or I think that there's a lot of benefits going into this efficiency model. Are there any disadvantages that we haven't talked about?
I do not believe that there are.
I think the idea of getting a construction manager on board early and to work with, our architect, I think it will help us facilitate the whole project
Yeah.
in a more quality way, and hopefully in a maybe more timely way too. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and hopefully we're gonna be putting public dollars to work, and we wanna manage this process as responsibly as we can, and I think this extra layer helps us do that.
I will move that Brian and Carol represent the board in the evaluation process.
I will second the motion, which seems logical, given that 2 of those people are going to be voted for.
I'll vote for you, Carol.
It'll balance out. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next is the resolution supporting the proposed issuance of approximately 7,500,000 school infrastructure sales services and use tax revenue bonds. Tim, can you talk us through what that all means?
Yeah, so we're doing a couple of different things with our save, which I'm reminded that's the 1 cent sales tax that's being collected. It's not any kind of new thing. The board's put on the September election already the idea that we're gonna redo the revenue purpose statement and extend the length. What we had tonight, so that's one piece, is you have to extend how long it is, and just the structure of our revenue purpose statement. What we had tonight was a public hearing, and then this resolution would say what we're gonna do with some of that money. What we're as a board are saying with this is, we're going to issue bonds, borrowing against that anticipated revenue for up to $7.5 million to be used to the new school. So it seems maybe a little like, well, why wouldn't we do that after? You can do it in either order. You can extend the revenue purpose statement before or after. But by this, what the board is saying is, we're making a commitment to help this elementary project that we would borrow up to $7.5 million. We're not required to borrow the $7.5 million, but as you heard in Mark's presentation, we want to give the board the flexibility to build the school we need to build. And so the GO bond amount could be the 38 million, and then this could add on top of it for any costs and any other things. Cindy and I have kind of talked about, with Cindy being on the committee, that we really wouldn't want to commit to all 7.5 unless it just absolutely positively had to get us over. And that maybe a safer number would be borrowing like $3 million against it, which would help fill in some of the cracks and anticipated. But in talking with the Allers and Cooney's folks, when I said, oh, we probably just want to borrow 3 million, they said, set the number as high as you can go. That's, manageable, because you don't want to be in a situation where you've said we're gonna borrow 3 million and you need 3.3 or 3.4. So that's what this recommendation is. This money would be used at the end of the project to get the project over the hump, to get it completed.
I think it also, correct me if I'm wrong here, by using these funds, these are not new funds, we're not asking for additional money. It's a continuation of some funds we've already had coming in. And if we use some of these funds, a GO bond could be lower because we've used some funds that we already have building up and allocated. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this helped us. We're anticipating the project being about 38 million right now. But the recommendation from the facility committee was to borrow the 38 million and use this on top of that, so you didn't have to actually ask for 40 million or 41 million. We'll set a special meeting to approve the two recommendations from the facility committee. We've talked about maybe doing that next Monday, but at that meeting, we'll have to set a dollar amount that we're borrowing. And so their recommendation is 38 million, knowing that there's probably 3 million from the sales tax that would also be available to kind of make it a $41 million total opportunity for funds. And to your point earlier, it's this 1 cent sales tax that's every district in the Iowa. It's being collected throughout Iowa. All the public districts get this. It's not a change in anything. We're just directing how that money will be used. And we have the ability to borrow against it for our project if we pass this measure.
And extending it also is something that every district does at some.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's just.
Yeah, we could have extended it last year or 2 years ago. It just, with the timing of all the stuff, it obviously needs to be done now. We could have waited another year or two, but anticipating that we might want to borrow against it or have the ability to borrow against it. So we wouldn't actually take this loan out until we need it.
Yeah, I view this as like, in my home, we have a first mortgage and a second mortgage. The second mortgage is called a home equity line of credit. And we have an amount that's approved, not because I intend to spend that much, but to have it available. So when it's time to replace the roof, which is now.
Or the siding.
Yeah, or the siding, which we've already done. We've got it available. We don't have to, worry about, do we have adequate funds to do the project as it needs to be done?
Mhm.
So to me, this is perfect sense, something that any homeowner has probably done in the past and for good reason.
So this resolution is simply approving the public hearing.
We did the public hearing. We held the public hearing. This is actually saying we want to have the ability to borrow $7.5 million against our anticipated revenue from sale. So this is the actual action step.
Okay. I think that I really appreciated the thoughtfulness and the conversations that the committee had about how to finance. Obviously, the estimate for today's school is a lot. That's a lot. It's more than any of us wanted it to be. But the committee also recognized the importance for the school district to stay financially nimble. And this fund helps us stay nimble to best address things that come up. So you're right, Tim. I don't want to spend all of this on a new school. And I don't even want to spend more than half of it on a new school if we can help it. But it's nice to have this flexibility just in case.
And I harken back to what Mark said, talking about the best analogy you could use is you don't want to be house poor. You don't want to have all your ability to borrow tied up in the new elementary school in case you would need. And I don't anticipate, but it would be, as part of my job is to keep us nimble so that if we do need a new roof or something, that we're able to do that. So.
Well, move approval of the resolution supporting the proposed issuance of approximately $7,500,000 school infrastructure sales services and use tax bonds.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Oh, there's a question.
Oh, roll call.
Oh, roll call. Thank you.
Ron,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Aaron.
Aye.
Carol. Aye. Cindy,
Aye.
thank you.
Okay, next, approve spring and summer coaches. If you remember months ago, we approved
You guys.
fall and winter coaches, so this is just working ahead to the next seasons. And the detailed document that is attached has both, high school sports and middle schools.
Just to clarify again, and say what you already said, but this is for the 24-25 year, not the summer coaches that are already coaching right now.
Correct.
I make a motion, we approve the summer coaches schedule.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
One point, just to clarify, spring and summer.
Yeah, spring, summer, yeah. Schedule we have presented.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second for spring and summer coaches. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, an update on the mediation process for the district's request to join the Upper Iowa Conference.
So the State Department of Ed has scheduled the mediation hearing for Decorah to go for our request to be admitted to the Upper Iowa next Wednesday,
The 17th.
July 17th. And it's in conjunction, we're in the middle of 3 hearings. The first one is Charles City's request to join the North Central Conference, and then after us is Waverly's request to join the WAMAC conference. So I had some information, just kind of resharing a little bit. Obviously, I can't predict what will come of that, nor would I want to, but I put in the criteria like the state law, every school district has the right to be in a conference. We're geographically in a unique position, being a large district in the corner of the state. If you look at that conference eligibility, I think the 2 main criteria will come down to competitive balance and travel distance. And obviously, with 3 of the schools leaving our current conference is the NEIC, and 3 schools leaving the NEIC to go to the Upper Iowa. That's kind of why we want to go to the Upper Iowa. We feel that the competitive balance will be similar to what it is now. We're good in some sports. We don't dominate in all sports, so course to course perspective is the competitive balance isn't that large a gap, but the travel distance goes from, it's probably in here, an average of like 35 miles. Yeah, the only other conference that's even been suggested for us is also the WAMAC, which is about 126 miles average.
One way.
Traveling.
Yeah,
One
Yeah.
way.
and so that's a phenomenal amount of travel. We think about, and so Adam did a lot of work on this and surveyed coaches and that document's in there. And not everybody has, it's not everybody who says we should go to the Upper Iowa. Different sports have different opinions, but I guess what that document represents is the time that Adam spent communicating with each coach and finding out what their preference is and communicating with the coaches what the options are and making sure they understood that. So we've done a lot of work. We did a community survey as well. So we'll find out. I think we have 60 days after next Wednesday's mediation to get a result, but I guess, you know, like I said, it'll come down to competitive balance and travel distance in my mind, and unless I'm missing something. Obviously, the whole point of mediation is to get the parties all together in the same room and to get get the group to have a resolution without intervention from the Department of Ed in this case, or the jurisdiction body. That may happen, but it may not, and if we can't come to an agreement, then the Department of Ed is charged with the task of coming up with a solution. And that could be, that's where I don't want to speculate what the Department of Ed would come up with, other than we would have a conference, and that's what we would like. So,
So at the mediation next week, Tim, you're planning to attend. Ron is gonna attend, and that is, Ron was invited to do so because of your role on the Girls Athletic Union, because of your experience as an attorney, because of your historical leadership on the board. You just bring a lot of expertise. So thank you in advance for your time. And of course, I think Adam Riley is also.
oh, very much, yeah.
Um,
I think we'll be highly represented.
we will be
Yes.
represented. But I just appreciate, the work that Adam Riley has put into not only taking an objective approach, which is linked in our agenda tonight, of showing the pros and cons of each option and ranking those in, option 1, 2, and 3, but also just with the time that he's put in to build, to communicate with our neighboring school districts. And I'm hoping for the best placement for, Decorah in the time to come, with education and just the well-being of our kids as a priority.
The only other comment I'll make on what you just said is Adam found the next best solutions, and I think we all agreed that if the Northeast Iowa Conference could continue to exist as it is presently, we'd be very interested in that, but
Absolutely.
having to go down the line, identified what we'd like to do, leave it to
Yeah.
you guys to
Yeah.
talk for us.
That's a
Yeah.
really good point. This is the best solution. But anytime we're asked or we're given a window to share, we always say our number one preference is to keep the NEIC together and grow the conference. But we can't dictate other school districts' actions, and so this is the current best situation. But we do point that out, and we will point that out next Wednesday. Thanks for adding that.
Talking 100+ years of tradition that's being thrown out the window, so,
Isn't it the oldest conference in the state?
yes. Was the first conference created in the state of Iowa, and obviously therefore the oldest and
Sure.
longest.
Is that an option to continue? Is that
Again,
at this mediation, or is it as everything?
I think anything could happen in the mediation. We will, again, if we don't come into some kind of agreement and we're at loggerheads, then it goes to the Department of Ed. And the Department of Ed has done things in the past where they just put conferences together, not just with the Tri-Rivers and Big East that I was aware of, but other places in the state. So, that's where that might be some of the leverage of, if we don't come to an agreement, then the state can do whatever they want, and we may like what the state does even less than the option before us, but anything's possible.
No, it's not possible for us to do it on our own, but it is possible for the mediation team to do whatever they see as the best resolution.
Yeah, so no action is needed on this item. This is just an update.
Yep.
But we covered all of our bases there. Okay, next is approval of the 2024-25 Clinicare 28E agreement.
And this is with Crossroads Academy here in town. There's just a couple minor tweaks with cost of things, and I tried to highlight those in in green, so there's one or two items. We changed the name of the building, to the homeschool building, so I've got two changes in this, two minor changes to the staff.
Mhm.
What was the old rate? New rate's 169.91. I see, you know,
I could. Let's see about time, version history. Nope, I don't have it in front of me. I'll. I feel like it was in the 150, but I couldn't. I'm looking at Darlene and Kathy.
sure.
I'm looking at it right now.
Is that based off some state figures or any idea? I mean,
I think that's,
Off their rates,
I'm sorry.
based off their rates, whatever they,
Oh, that, okay, they came up with this new proposed rate.
yes.
Okay. That seems pretty straightforward then. Both the rate and the number of 173 school day or school year days in school year. Any other questions about the drafted agreement?
I would just note that this is substantially the same as what we've approved for a long time.
$47.
What, 149.30 was last year.
yeah, that's what I had, 149.30. So,
Move that we approve the 24-25 clinic care 28E agreements.
I'll second that.
Okay. There's a motion and second. Any further questions? Ron?
I'm sorry.
Yep, Ron was the seconded. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries. Next is approval of the 2024-2025 UPAH Employee Services Agreement.
and this is like the special ed services, Medicare, agreement with the. Not Crossroads, I think that's wrong.
Unity.
Yeah, with Unity Point. Something we do every year. And it's beneficial to us, and so I would recommend that we approve it.
Mhm.
And there are no changes.
No significant changes done.
Make a motion, we approve the UPAH employee service agreement. A second.
Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And next on the agenda is approval of student handbooks. And we have three different items: elementary, Decorah Middle School, and Decorah High School. And each of these have a lot of detail. And we have three school administrators in the room, and I just want to thank you for the time and work that you put in. These policies are really important to support you in your leadership roles, but also the staff to have clear guidelines to facilitate education in our schools. So thank you for the time and attention that you've put into those documents. Tim, do you have any other comments about? Let's start with the elementary handbook first.
Well, I think one of the things, I don't know if we've been doing this before, but we're just approving handbooks and putting on an agenda so that we're gonna have these passed out and have them be an official document that the board's seen them. So we'd had these in use for years. And we maybe just started approving them last year. So elementary handbook, Rick, I'll look at you and say any significant changes in.
Trying to flash back to tweaking some things, but nothing major other than, like,
Dates.
yeah, nothing that would be significant.
For, as an example, we have dress code and in these handbooks, whereas the board has a dress code policy, and then the policy is pretty general, and that this is more specific. Dress code, interesting enough, is something that the DILT committee is talking about and may have a recommendation to the principals that would then alter the handbooks, but we don't have that. We don't have anything changed now, but that would be the kind of thing that might be looked at. Obviously, there's lots of schools that are having no cell phones, and we don't have that as a recommendation yet. So,
In the elementary handbook, it did say cell phones are not supposed to be used during the school day. But just, it does say, don't bring them, just don't use them during the school day. So I think that's a nice clarification.
Justin, do you have any substantive changes?
No, just like dates and some of those yearly things that occur, but no major updates. No.
Mhm.
and we did some work a year ago to make sure that I believe the conduct policy aligned with high school. That was good.
It's been our biggest change in the last year or so.
And we just, as a clarification, Jay, Mr. Chairman, I worked through this and built touch base with our grade level teams at the end of the year just to get their thoughts too on any tweaks or changes that we consider. And more often than not, there's nothing too major. Things come up, consider conversations, but as right now, it's statute.
Mhm. Mr. Hurst, what about you?
Yeah, ours, last year we did reorganize quite a bit to organize it into sections to make it have a better flow. Really the only thing this year, there's a lot of links, in ours. And as the board, I remember over the last couple of years, you've also undergone like a board review, policy review process. So as those policies have been updated, I've taken the time to like, go find those policies, create PDFs and link them to the relevant policy, so you can quickly reference the board policy that's aligned with what the student handbook says. So if anybody wanted to do that, they'd be able to do that very easily.
And I'll just stop and applaud you for that effort. I know we've talked about this, but lots of other districts I've worked in, maybe that work isn't done and nobody notices until you enforce a policy. And then the handbook has the policy that's 10 years old, and that's a really bad place to be. So I very much appreciate the work that Brad did to do that, and the other folks in the elementary and the middle school handbook when they've linked the current policy. That's super important to do.
Well, that just shows that you are following policy. I hope you're doing it for self-serving reasons.
It's always good when your handbook aligns with board policy.
Yeah, good.
As it should.
Good. Any other questions from the board about?
I'll move that we approve the, I think we can do these as a group.
I think, yeah. I think
So I would move that we approve the elementary, Decorah Middle School and Decorah High School student handbooks for 24-25.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Ron and a second from Carol. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Superintendent's report.
And not a big report, so just kind of reiteration of the CMR schedule. We're working on doing the building and ground director interviews, so we'll have some thoughts coming on that. Open enrollment, I had a question on open enrollment, about if the students from North Wind were open enrolling in other districts, and we haven't found any names that are doing that. So that was an interesting observation that I just found out this afternoon, and I wanted to share with you.
What'd you see, Tim?
So we have those students, the North Wind or the northern part of the district that were attending Mabel Canton.
Yeah.
So since that agreement ends, those students are either gonna become residents of Minnesota through like an educational guardianship to attend school, go to a private school, or we anticipated some open enrollment. And I just got asked how many of those students open enrolled to like Howard Wynn or Amaki. We checked, we don't think there's any names at this point in time that are doing that, so. We won't get normally you find out because you get a records request, but since those students aren't attending and we're attending Mabel Canton, we may not find out until certified enrollment is where exactly they're attending. We did send out a letter in the spring, just kind of reminding those parents that the agreement ended and gave them contact information and registration information for Decorah schools. I don't know if we've heard from many, if any of those students.
In the open enrollment there, for a while there were not dates, it was just free for all, if you will. There weren't dates they had to apply by, but now they do.
Well,
Correct.
we had March first as a deadline, and then the last 2 years, it's been the free for all. And then they just put the date back in, and that's something I have to look up. I think July first went into effect, and now there's a date for this current year. Kathy's nodding her head, maybe she knows what that date.
July 1st was the.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so now the new date is July first. So if we haven't gotten an open enrollment by July first, that becomes a discussion. If we get some in July, if as a board, what we do with people that have missed the deadline.
Isn't there some clause that they can argue some kind of good cause after that deadline?
And kindergartners still have up until September 1st.
Yeah.
Good cause, a little bit of interpretation of the board, but if you move after the deadline,
Right.
that would be a good cause, obviously. So,
Well, we welcome them to our first.
so, and maybe the last thing that I didn't put on my report is we're making good progress on the roof at the middle school. That project, Sean was telling me we got one section left.
One big section left.
So that's awesome, man. They're working. Yeah, they didn't come here, they didn't come to Decorah from Des Moines just to stand around and look at the bluffs.
Well, I've been told by a contractor that didn't have anything to do with this project, that said you got some of the best roofing contractors in the state, and they highly recommended them and just gave glowing reviews. So not only are we doing the large project, but we made that decision to do the smaller project on the other school. And so I'm very, very, very comfortable with that decision.
Can you give us enough? I know that summer is a busy time for maintenance in all aspects, and we're without a facility director. Can you tell us a little bit about how everything's going?
Sean?
Switch hats, Sean.
Yeah.
Get your hard hat out, buddy.
So, yeah, I'll defer a lot to Sean on this, but, he's doing a very nice job. He's got a lot of help. The custodians, are stepping up to the challenge and making sure they're organized on things. Sean is working through a list of summer improvements that grows daily. And I've encouraged him not to, we're not gonna get it all done, but we're gonna do our best to get as much done, and we're trying to pick off, and I've kind of warned the board that we might do a little bit more hiring of people just to make sure stuff gets done. So you might see a rise in some of the buildings and grounds costs. So we should be aware of that, but Sean, I'm gonna defer to you maybe on some of the specifics.
That was a really good way to summarize.
Well, we do talk a few times a day about stuff, Sean, so.
Yeah, I mean, a list that is growing every day. It's a living list. It moves. We take things off and then we add things, which is, I guess, how our list normally works anyway. So I mean, that's how it looks like that works. But it's everything from light bulbs that are bad or flower beds that need to be whatever, things like that, up to HVAC systems that aren't working on one side of the building that maybe need, fixing up or a new control board put in. Working with those vendors on how that works. Lots of phone calls with different people and keeping them rounded up and going. This is coordinating.
And so an example, like Casper's been in, because we've kind of battled the systems at the high school for at least 2 years. A while. And the systems aren't working. And so now I'm about to the edge of my knowledge, Sean, so anytime you jump in and want to save me, but control panels, we had 2 working out of 13.
We have 18 zones.
Okay.
out of the 18 zones, we had chapters come in and go through the zones, and out of the 18 zones, there were only 2 zones that were fully functioning. There were, other zones that maybe had like 1 or 2 things that are wrong with them, that were kind of working through those smaller zones, and get those going first, and then going to the bigger zones. And it's things from, fans that maybe are squeaky, or fans that don't work at all, or control boards, that just don't work. The system is getting a little older, and like Decorah's got not the cleanest power. We actually have high voltage in Decorah, which is kind of weird. And that's why it's static with some of those types of systems. So, the main control head is an issue right now, but we can't diagnose that with the manufacturer until we get a couple of those drones working, and we know that they're working, so that we can diagnose and troubleshoot with LGs that are. That's more.
And when we have a fully functioning high school control panel system where there's uniform heating and cooling, Mr. Hurst, I'm glad was gonna take you out for a steak dinner. I don't know when he said.
Whenever that day comes, I'm gonna do part with it.
Right here, we're gonna hold it.
Yeah, well, Sean, thanks for filling in the gaps, and this is an extra busy time, and in your report, Tim, you noted that interviews are happening and to fill the lead role, and looking forward to that recommendation when it comes.
And more to come on that.
Great. Financial report.
The financial report that I put in the packet was good as of the. Every time we do expense payrolls or expenditures, it's gonna change that amount. It's not gonna change your balances. So it's gonna be the accounts payable and accounts receivable. So I will be getting you new ones for the end of June, once I close up the books by September 15th. But there's a long process to get everything uploaded to the state to clear all the errors with the CAR. So I'm slowly going through all that. Special ed billing is due by next Monday, so that's a huge project to go through.
Yeah, this is a uniquely busy time for you too, to say the least.
But I was gonna say, there was a pay request that did come in before end June 30th. I don't know if you noticed, for the part of the river, it was like 896,000. So that was paid before June 30th. So there's a construction in progress piece that will also be on our balance sheet.
Any questions for Kathy? Kathy, thanks for all the time and attention and expertise that you bring to your role.
Thank you.
Before we adjourn, I might just throw out a happy note that Tim and I were fortunate enough to witness last week in Boston, which is the part of the Arts Award, which was awarded from the National Federation of High School Associations to Anders Lovestuen. It was a really good presentation, which is available now. It was tweeted out by the Iowa High School Athletic Association today. So I would encourage people to go look at that. It's very uplifting.
Congratulations to Anders Lovestuen, and thank you, Tim and Ron, for being there in person for that special honor for Anders and his family. We're all so proud of him.
This is amazing. This is a national honor. And
Yeah.
this is it. It's amazing.
Yeah, a name tag which says, you know, Ron from Iowa, and so many people I stopped counting would say, "Oh, you're from Iowa." Oh, boy, that was just amazing. You know, that they seen it's like thought that it was a very uplifting story, and then when I tell him, yeah, and he's from my school.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
Just shines a light on a brilliant young man from Decorah School, so we're proud of him.
What would be appropriate to do to recognize the facilities committee? You know, handwritten letter, we all sign something to them individually, or, you know, I think something we should do for all the time and effort that they put into it, and the wonderful outcome that we have here,
Yeah, I think
you know.
It's a good idea.
handwritten thank yous would be a good.
And ultimately, they each get a pair of scissors with the ribbon cutting.
There you go.
And maybe a shovel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's a really
Can
good
you
idea.
guys come up with something?
Yeah, we'll work on some handwritten notes, yeah.
That'd be great.
Okay,
And before you gavel, as maybe I should confirm, let's schedule a special board meeting to act on the 2 recommendations from the facility committee. And I think what's gonna work the best right now is next Monday at 6:30. Everybody can attend that. We will have at least 2 agenda items, and we may sneak in if we have the school safety grant. We get the 3 quotes we need. John, thank you also for working on that in your spare time. But that we've been approved by the school safety people, so we just have to start work, and we can't start work without 3 quotes. But if we can all meet next Monday at 6:30, we will have the recommendations as from the facility committee as action items for the board to approve.
Was that a soft way of saying that Sean's slacking?
Yeah, no,
I don't think Sean is sleeping.
no, if, I can tell you one thing, if Brad stays awake at night worrying about I'm sure Brad stays awake a lot of things, but the HVAC at the high school is one thing. School safety grant might be one thing for Sean to be happy that would get done, because that's been a arduous process.
Cartwheels, Sean?
Yeah, that one's a federal grant, so I'm ready
Oh.
for that.
Yeah. Okay. 6:30 is not okay. Please let them know after the meeting if you're not, but
Works for me.
yeah, I'm good.
I'm the one who said 6:30 instead of 5:30, so I could do 5:30 if people really. This is 30.
Fine.
6:30 is fine.
30.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the meeting adjourned.